something has been quietly changing. Maybe you noticed it a few weeks ago, or maybe it's been months, and you've only just started to admit it. You're getting through your days. You're doing the things you're supposed to do. But something that used to feel automatic now takes effort it shouldn't take. Conversations that used to feel easy now require more from you than you have. You finish the day, and instead of tired, you feel emptied out, like something got used up that didn't get refilled. And you've probably told yourself it's just a busy stretch, that things will ease up, that everyone feels like this sometimes. But here's what most people don't know about brain burnout, and what makes it genuinely different from ordinary tiredness. It doesn't respond to rest the way tiredness does. You can sleep 8 hours and wake up just as depleted as when you closed your eyes. You can take a weekend off and come back to Monday feeling no more restored than when you left it. Because what's exhausted isn't your body. It's the specific cognitive and neurological systems that manage attention, decision-making, emotional regulation, and motivation. And those systems don't recover the way muscles do. They require something different, something most people never give them, because most people don't recognize what's happening until it's already significant. By the end of this video, you're going to be able to identify exactly what's happening in your brain and why the way you've been trying to manage it probably hasn't been working. Here are 5 warning signs your brain is burnt out. Sign 1. Making even small decisions has started to feel disproportionately hard. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that shows up in the decision-making process, and it tends to arrive quietly in the small things, long before it becomes obvious in the big ones. What do you want for dinner? Which of these 2 emails should you send first? Do you feel like going or staying in tonight? These are not complicated questions. They used to not feel complicated. But lately, something about them costs more than it should. What you're experiencing has a name in cognitive neuroscience: decision fatigue. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for weighing options, anticipating consequences, and choosing a course of action, operates on a finite daily budget of cognitive resources. Under normal conditions, that budget is more than enough. Under sustained mental overload, it depletes faster than it replenishes. And the first system to show the strain consistently is the one handling decisions. Because decision-making is among the most resource-intensive things the brain does. What makes this a warning sign worth taking seriously is the pattern. A genuinely tired brain makes hard decisions with difficulty. A burnt-out brain makes easy decisions with difficulty. If you've noticed that the threshold for what counts as an overwhelming choice has dropped significantly, if things that never used to require deliberation are now generating genuine mental resistance, that's not distraction. That's depletion at a neurological level. If this named something you've been quietly experiencing, but writing off as a character flaw, hit the like button. Because what you've been calling indecisiveness or lack of motivation has a much more specific explanation than that. Sign 2. Your emotional responses have become harder to regulate. Do you find yourself getting more irritated than the situation warrants? Tearing up at something that wouldn't normally move you? Feeling a sudden wash of anxiety about something that, on an ordinary day, you'd handle without a second thought? And then, perhaps most disorienting of all, feeling strangely flat in moments where you'd normally feel something clearly? Emotional dysregulation is one of the most consistent and most misunderstood signs of neurological burnout. And it tends to be misunderstood because it looks, from the outside and sometimes from the inside, like a mood problem. Like something is emotionally wrong, rather than cognitively depleted. Here's the mechanism. The same prefrontal systems that handle decision-making also handle emotional regulation. The capacity to feel an emotion without being immediately controlled by it, to apply context to a feeling before reacting, to modulate your response to match the actual weight of the situation. When those systems are running on depleted resources, the modulation fails. Emotions arrive at full volume with no dimmer switch. Small frustrations feel large. Manageable things feel unmanageable. And the capacity to talk yourself down from a reaction, which normally happens so automatically you barely notice it, requires a conscious effort that a burnt-out brain simply doesn't have left. The moodiness isn't a personality change, it's a resource problem. And understanding that distinction matters, all because it changes what the situation actually needs. Sign 3. Your ability to concentrate has become genuinely unreliable. There's a version of distraction that most people are familiar with, the low-level pull of a phone, the tendency for the mind to drift during a tedious task. That's normal. That's the brain seeking stimulation when what it's doing isn't providing enough. Brain burnout produces something different, something more unsettling. It's the inability to hold focus on something you actually want to focus on. You sit down to do the thing, the task that matters, the conversation that deserves your full attention, the project you care about. And somewhere between starting and being 5 minutes in, the thread just goes. Not to something more interesting. Nowhere specifically. Just gone. And you have to physically return your attention to it. And it goes again. And the process of repeatedly retrieving it becomes its own source of exhaustion on top of the original task. Neuroscientists describe this as attentional network fatigue, a specific degradation in the brain's ability to sustain directed focus when its executive systems are overtaxed. It is not laziness. It is not a focus disorder that appeared out of nowhere. It is a measurable consequence of asking a depleted neurological system to perform at a level it no longer has the resources to sustain. Save this video, because the final 2 signs are where this picture becomes most important to understand clearly. And this is a framework you'll want to come back to when you're trying to explain to yourself or to someone else what's actually been going on. Not sign 4. Things that used to interest you have gone quiet. This one tends to sneak up on people. It doesn't arrive as a dramatic loss. It's more like a slow dimming. The thing you used to look forward to just doesn't pull at you the way it did. The interest is still there in an abstract sense. You still know you like that thing. You still identify with it. But the felt sense of wanting to engage with it has flattened. You'll get around to it. You're just not feeling it right now. And right now keeps extending. The neurological explanation for this sits in the brain's dopaminergic systems, specifically the reward and motivation pathways that generate the felt sense of wanting and anticipation. Chronic cognitive overload disrupts these pathways, not permanently, but significantly enough that the normal motivational pull toward enjoyable activities becomes muted. The brain running in conservation mode stops generating strong approach signals toward things that aren't immediately necessary, which means the hobbies, the creative outlets, the things that feed you rather than drain you, the very things that would help, stop feeling accessible. This is one of the cruelest features of brain burnout. The recovery requires engagement with the things that restore you. But the burnout itself suppresses the motivation to engage with them. You know you should do the thing. You know it helps. You just can't quite make yourself want to. That's not a willpower failure. That's a neurological loop, and recognizing it as such is the first step toward working with it rather than against yourself. The psychology of why these systems deplete, what restores them, and what genuine recovery actually requires, at a level that goes past generic wellness advice, is what this channel keeps going deeper into. Subscribing is how you stay in that conversation rather than having to find your way back to it. Sign 5. Rest has stopped feeling restful. This is the one. This is the sign that, when people hear it named clearly, tends to produce the most immediate and the most unsettled recognition. You took the time off. You did the thing that's supposed to help. You slept. You stepped back. You gave yourself the weekend, the holiday, the slower week, and you came back to your life feeling essentially the same as when you left. Or in some cases, you came back feeling worse because now you've rested and you're still exhausted. And that gap between what should have helped and what actually happened is its own demoralizing thing to carry. What's happening here is the distinction between passive recovery and active neurological restoration. Physical tiredness responds to physical rest. You stop moving, the muscles repair, you wake up recovered. Cognitive and emotional burnout doesn't follow that model. The brain systems that are depleted don't restore during passive downtime in the same way. They require specific conditions, genuine psychological safety, the absence of low-level threat or performance demand, engagement with activities that generate intrinsic reward rather than just absence of obligation. A week where you're lying on a beach but quietly dreading Monday is not neurological restoration. It's a pause inside ongoing depletion. This is why so many people describe coming back from a holiday more tired than when they left. Not because rest is failing them, because what they took wasn't the kind of rest the depleted system actually needed. And understanding that difference is where recovery stops being a mystery and starts being something you can actually address deliberately. There's a video on this channel that goes directly into what genuine cognitive recovery looks like. Not the surface-level version, but the specific conditions under which these systems actually restore. That's the next step from what we've covered today. And if any of these signs have been sitting in your life for a while, that follow-through is worth it. If what we've gone through today reflects something that has been building for a while and feels significant, Nambarsi, please don't hesitate to speak with a mental health or medical professional. Brain burnout is real, it's measurable, and it responds to the right kind of support. You don't have to wait until it becomes a crisis to take it seriously. Drop a comment with the sign that named something you'd been dismissing. The specific one that reframed something from a personal failing into something with an actual explanation. Those responses matter to everyone else watching who is sitting with the same thing and wondering if it's just them. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.